You're watching TVC Breakfast. It's time for us to look at the next discussion now. Fresh tension is brewing in the camp of the All Progressives Congress ahead of the party's national convention scheduled for the 26th of February 2022. Now, selection of delegates for the convention is at the source of the crisis, now threatening the success of the event, as the party, which have been struggling to resolve its intra-party crisis, they end up even more factionalized after the convention if not handled properly. Now, there are indications that delegates will be drawn from factions loyal to APC governors only. Already in states like Kano, Kwara State, Gombe and Zamfara State, the party has been badly factionalized, with some camps loyal to governors while others are led by party chieftains. Now, reports of a plan to impose a consensus candidate on the party by some gladiators is another contentious issue. And these are the things we'll be looking at going into the February convention of the All Progressives Congress. With me in the studio as public affairs analyst, Akin Fantunke. It's nice to have you join me this morning.
Nice to be here.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we hope we certainly will be having Biodun Showomi join us as we get along on the program. Now, okay, let me start it this way. It is very normal and common that whenever there's any election coming, of course, all the horse trading, all of those things will, one way or the other, come up. But what brings uncertainty are usually the issues of disagreements, where what we call some will call it party crisis and all of that, as much as some will say, well, there is just democracy in play. But what do you make of all of these issues from the various states within the ruling party going into a convention of this kind?
Again, thanks, Mike. And interests, compromises, consensus, these are normal in political circles. And in any case, if we go into political economy and draw from Harold Digits Laswell, talk about politics is all about who gets what,
when and how.
and the how. I'm not too surprised. It's always been with us. I remember the Battle of the Long Knives, on the First, Second Republics, where a lot of horse tradings do take place behind the curtain. This time around, I'm afraid, is exacerbated by the lack, in my humble opinion, of clear-cut ideologies. So when Harold Laswell was talking about who gets what, when, and how, assumes the cake has been baked, and so we should share the spoils of office. In our own case, I am not seeing so much of a cake that has been baked. I am seeing a lot of cakes, cheese that has been moved, and virtually nothing to show for it. If, for instance, UNESCO is talking about education in Nigeria now being in dire straits, and all the SDGs 17 of them are all in the right, then you begin to wonder, what really is it? It therefore means, from political economic theory, that there are certain crumbs under the table which people still want to share with the belief that they do not believe that we have a nation to protect and we have a future to go for. So all put together, the issues arising from here, it's to look at the strategic directions, certain things are beginning to come out, and people easily talk about the fact that the Mai Buni-led caretaker convention has won a court case. These people should also remember that the courts have been talking from 15th of October, I think, 2021, when Ehis Ohomo at the Delta High Court, Ehis Ohomo and some others took the State Congress to task to put aside the World Congress, the local government elections. The High Court came out clearly and said no local standing. Clearly, 2 months after, on October 27, December 22nd of that same year, Wanchukwuka Matthew also approached asking that it should be set aside. Now, you know, like they tell us in primary school, we hear the first bang, you hear the second bang, you hear the third bang. It tells you clearly, therefore, that you know, the APC cannot continue to steer. And if my Bunu has now been given a clear cut, the course is now clear, we are beginning to see, you know, movements to say, for instance, the chairmanship of the party is most likely going to be zoned to the north, and so the presidential ticket is most likely going to be zoned to the south. And if INEC is saying by August ending, if you don't submit all your list of, you are going to be in trouble. And if you have over 7,000 posts that APC has to, then you must be careful. And can APC now decide to, since it's at the High Court, appeal that? It is most unlikely. In the words of Ali Modu Sharif, we keep on talking to one another anyway, and I hope what happened in Bayelsa, what happened in Rivers, what happened again lately in Anambra State with the Andy Ubasaga will be things that I think APC should have learned from.
All right, going into this convention with all of these issues, what do you think will shape the way the convention is going to be, apart from the crisis that you have mentioned?
Okay. I think basically the battle of strong will and strong men will come to be. And again, if you, political economy talked about SWOT, you know, talk about the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the strength. Let me start with the T, the threats. In Mr. President, who is the head of the party, clearly making the pronouncements ab initio from time that is for nobody and it's for everybody, and that he is standing aloof while the whole edifice seems to be leaking is something that I think the APC rank and file should take into consideration. Situations where, as in Zamfara, as in Bayelsa, as in Rivers, Zamfara as an example, where candidates were filled, won elections, and then the court ruled otherwise, and Mom was the name of the game. So I think the coloration of what Mr. President stands for and he stands for will continue to be a great issue in there. Secondly, situations where you had an amalgam of string bedfellows that came, you know, into
initially
the coalition, where you had the CPC, you know,
we had the new PDP that time.
The new PDP, who were the first to actually go, that's the Saraki version of it. And then, of course, we have the ANC. Situations have shown clearly that perhaps the CPC over time just wants to take it all and be all. And if my Buni Yadi's pronouncement that he has a job, as a governor, and that he must now try to put that in place is anything to go by, we must insist that for the sake of country and for the sake of APC itself to continue to be relevant. If they choose to want to be relevant, they must sort that out. You mentioned in your opener the issue of consensus. It's clear that Mr. President, during one of his, were thinking of, direct and indirect. Mr. President clearly was talking about consensus. The consensus is now going to be issues which care is not taken. And if you do not go into this February 26th
convention
with a lot of carefulness, lots will be lost. Opportunities, the networking, incumbency, and the strength being the fact that the elections is out there for APC to decide to lose. So if they don't put all that together and try to be fair, gentlemanly, gentle-ladyly, and the women are talking about the affirmative action of making sure they get 35, and people are not really talking seriously and conscientiously about issues politics. So another threat too, the PDP, who should be waiting in the wings, hopefully, are also helping or not helping the issue by the recent pronouncement that the Indigbo should wait for another 5 years. So the issue of settling the Indigbo question as regards when the presidency comes to the South and the Indigbos are saying it's their turn, is yet another thing that must be carefully looked at, carefully settled, so that people don't now begin to go to court.
All right. Let's introduce our another panelist, Biodu Shomi, right here. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning.
And,
nice to see you.
It's nice to see you. It's been a long while now.
It's been a long while. You're correct.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Great. Now we're looking at the APC going into the 26th February convention and all of the issues building up to that. First, we have the issues of the chairmanship of the party, which we have about 12 candidates jostling here and there. The issue of the zoning of the chairmanship position is still here and there, everyone is looking at. But shaping the convention, issues that, if not handled well, could make the convention go south, as the case may be. What do you see from where you stand right now as to what has to be handled, what has to be looked into, what has to be consulted on, and things like that?
Yeah, I think the issues are very, very clear in my mind. In the first instance, when you look at the uproar from the north that greeted the 17 Southern governors' decision that or demand that the next presidential candidate from APC should come from the South, you realize quite clearly that the whole storm settled very quickly. The whole conversation changed from, anger, why are you making demands, to, oh, you should have consulted, we should have done it through consultation rather than making demands. So fairly, if you actually look at the trajectory of events within the APC in line with the chairmanship election, you realize quite clearly that there seems to be a silent consensus that the next chairman should come from the north of APC, and that seems to be the picture on the table currently. And when you then look at the other issue, which is also contentious, is the issue of the next presidential candidate. Obviously, if the chairman is from the north, the presidential candidate obviously will come from the south. So one way or the other, I think they're working their own system to achieve that end. And in relation to the presidential candidate coming from the south, yes, I know that there are so many, there are about 3 zones in the south, and anybody can come from anywhere. that has long been settled by the governors themselves. When they made the announcement and their demand is the next president should come from the south, they did not state clearly that you should come from southwest, southeast, or south-south. So,
but what do you think would determine that micro-zoning if he has come? Because the divide of north and south, 3 regions in the north, 3 regions in the south, and then when it comes down south, what are the issues that will shape the micro-zoning of, or say, let's take it to south-south or southwest or southeast, as the case may be?
There are other issues like not only the reaction of PDP in terms of where their home presidential candidate will come from. The fact is that APC will be looking at fielding their strongest possible candidate who can who has a wide acceptability and who they think all zones across the divide within the party can trust in terms of ensuring the security of the country, ensuring the unity of the country. They will be looking at that. They will probably be looking at somebody who would end up becoming a manager rather than a director, who will manage the relationship between the different
so the
factions
APC may not
itself.
necessarily be looking at the place. They'll be looking at the candidate and the substance of the person.
Yeah, they're likely going to look at the candidate first because the manifesto is more or less not a candidate's manifesto. It's always a manifesto of the political party. So they will zero in on a candidate who can deliver, who has a proven record of delivery, and who can reach across the board, both the north, the south, southeast, and southwest. And particularly, they'll be looking at a candidate who enjoys tremendous support from their from the person's zones, whether it's a man or a woman, I don't know, but they will be looking at that because if you can't win your zone, how would you be able to go out and say you are campaigning for presidency? That would be strange. So they'll be thinking about that. What are you bringing on the table? You are bringing your zone on the table. Do you have the wherewithal? Do you have the links, to be able to raise the finances, because our election is highly monetized. It costs a lot of money. I think we have about 774 polling units, 1,000 polling units in the country. So how are you going to finance that? You must be a person of some standing who is able to fundraise to fund all these activities. So they'll be looking at a lot of other issues. Otherwise, the party will have to pick up the bill.
Okay.
Mr. Abiodun is putting in, he says 774?
Yeah.
Maybe 772 with the 2 that we lost in Bayelsa, notwithstanding.
Exactly.
It's good to be.
Now, but the issue there is, let's come to the issue of the role of governors, because you can't wish that away one way or the other. But whether they are all on the same page is something else, and all of that. But talk to us basically, what roles the governors will be playing into the convention.
I tell you, it's very key. Mr. Abiodun mentioned that clearly. The governors are in the center of ensuring that whatever becomes the lot of APC, likewise, the governors in PDP will determine whatever is going to be the lot of PDP. I think their role is very key. I think the Governors Forum, and by that, I say that very decidedly, Governor Fayemi, and perhaps the Progressive Governors Forum, governors are talking, are speaking behind the scene. Please, we should not be taken by what we see, the facade of what we see. We have quite a number of other factions in Ekiti State, where we are going to be having the governorship elections in June, and Osun State, where Ileri and the Ileri group and the other group, if that is not sorted and we say that the governors are going to make a determination, whatever happens in those two states, in asking that, their primaries should come before February 26th is very, very important. Otherwise, these guys will go into a lot of fractures. Zamfara state is another place. I think it's high time the governors, the contenders, the pretenders should come together very, very quickly to now then make and say, look, it has to be Nigeria first.
Exactly. Before anything else.
Others.
Now, we don't have all the time right now, but the point there is the crisis in some of the state chapters of the APC is something that everyone is looking at. How, is going to shape, the outcome of the convention and all of that. Talk to us from that window.
Yes, it's not the first time, and it's not something new. We've always been having crises, whether it's APC or PDP. In this situation currently, this is the time when we've not heard from the national secretariat, which of the factions in some states that they actually recognize. I think it's a recognition of their efforts to manage the crisis, wanting to explore whether peaceful solutions to the problem, whether they can unite the different factions, like they've done in Ogun, trying to do in Ogun, trying to do in Osun. Whether that will succeed or not, no one knows. But the fact of the matter is they would end up being forced to name the faction they recognize, and that faction will produce the delegates, that will go for the convention.
It's all right. We so much to talk about, but we don't have all the time right now. Piotr Sholmi, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. And Akin Fatunke, thank you very much for coming as well.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.